It's good to see you. In the book of 1 Peter chapter 5 and in verse 8, we're told something about the devil. We're told that be of sober spirit, be on the alert. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. Now, you may not be a Christian or a believer, but I don't know, even if I was not a Christian, I'd say like, you know what? I think that passage is pretty self-evident in history. Haven't we seen a lot of people throughout history devoured by evil, bitterness, anger, whatever it may be, but just devoured by it? Presently today, aren't we seeing a whole lot of people devoured by what you would consider darkness? Just devoured by the darkness. Maybe the way that modern people view it is people have lost their minds. Now, if what they mean by that is, I think it looks like they've been devoured by the devil, I would agree. I would agree. And so, I don't know, do you think there's going to be much argument over that? Yeah. I mean, there's evil in the world, right? We see it. In the day and age in which we live with like 24/7 news feed and everyone having a phone and all those capabilities where we can see all sorts of things going on and you're all connected to the internet, we probably see more evil and more people doing bad things than we used to see. It happened before, but we just didn't know about it. And so, devoured. Question though, how do I keep myself, how do you keep yourself from being devoured? And so I wanted to make kind of a list of things here. One would be avoid feeling sorry for yourself. Now, I tell you what, you can probably always find someone that in a certain area of their life, they seem to have it better than you do. But the key word there is the word seem. Because, I don't know, there certainly have been times in the past that I've been kind of jealous or envious of somebody else and look at their life and go like, but you know what? When I dug under the surface, I found, there's more there. They've got some problems I didn't know about. They've got some huge struggles that I didn't know about. Years ago, someone said, if we took all of our challenges and we you know, your biggest problem or your biggest challenge, and we all brought those biggest challenges or a problem to like a table, and we were allowed to drop it on the table. But before we left, we had to pick up one. We had to pick up one that someone else had brought. Someone said we would probably leave with the one that we were wanting to get rid of. After we looked at, that's what they're dealing with. I didn't know people dealt with that, and that. Boy, you know, my challenge doesn't look so bad after all. My life looks pretty good in a sense after all. You can lose your faith. You can lose your faith when you start comparing yourself to other people. Like, well, I think they got more than I have. And tell you what, Ecclesiastes chapter 5 reminds us that people that have a lot of money sometimes don't sleep well at night. And not only that, but money doesn't make you happy. And not only that, but the only advantage of a whole lot of stuff and a whole lot of money and a whole lot of possessions is you just get to look at a little bit more than the next guy does. Not only that, but you need more people to take care of it. It's interesting how God phrases that. Solomon notes, and this is something Solomon had experienced personally because he had a tremendous amount of wealth. And yet, in chapter 2, verse 11, he said it was all striving after wind. Didn't make him happy. Didn't make him fulfilled. But the way he phrases it in the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 11 is, when goods increase, those who consume them increase. I think the idea is, the more you have, the more you need to hire people to take care of what you have. And so the more you have, you need accountants now. You need lawyers now. You might need a gardener now. The more cars you have, well, you need someone to take care of those cars, etc. You need people. Those people cost money. Look at many of the NBA players that have their entourage. You know, yeah, they're making a whole lot of money, but there's a lot of money going out taking care of the posse and all the tag-alongs and things like that. Got to have your people. And so, yeah, the more you make, but the more you make, the bigger your bills are. And so Solomon notes, you know, be careful about envying the person who has a lot, because it comes with a lot of responsibility as well. It comes with bigger bills. It also comes with bigger worries. In the book of Psalm 73, we have a man that was a godly man, yet the problem is he started focusing upon wicked people that seemed to be having pretty good lives. He says in verse 13, verse 12, "Behold, these are the wicked," Psalm 73:12, "always at ease. They have increased in wealth." Well, all the wicked are not always at ease, but because you'll see a lot of people that are not right with God, they're having miserable lives. The Bible talks about that too. Book of Proverbs, the way of the transgressor is hard. But you'll probably always find that there are unbelievers, there are people that don't obey God, that looks like they're more prosperous than Christians. You know, they're very healthy, they live in very nice neighborhoods, etc. They have great jobs. And it looks like their lives are fantastic. But he says, and he thought, man, I'm just stricken all day long in trying to serve God faithfully. But then it says in verse 16, "When I pondered to understand this, it was troublesome in my sight until I came into the sanctuary of God. Then I perceived their end. Surely you set them in slippery places. You cast them down to destruction. How they're destroyed in a moment." So all of a sudden, instead of envying the unbeliever, whose life seems pretty good, all of a sudden he says, wait a minute, that ride they're on is going to end very abruptly. That path they're on is going to come around the corner and there's going to be a sheer drop-off. And not only that, but here are people that probably have this idea that, hey, look at the house I have, look at the money I have, look at the possessions I have. God has to like me. And it's not the case. They're not blessed by God. They just have nice things, but they're not blessed by God. Material wealth is really no proof of whether you're right or wrong with God. All right? Okay. Being rich doesn't mean that you're necessarily right with God, but being poor doesn't mean you're right with God either. There are too many people walking around that somehow think that God is always on the side of the poor. There's a lot of poor, wicked people too, okay? So wealth or poverty, neither one of them mean you're right with God. Neither one are conditions for salvation. It's not like, well, if I'm poor, I know I'm going to heaven. No, there are plenty of poor people that are not going to heaven. Book of Proverbs 30 makes that clear about verses 5 and 6, where he says, hey, God, don't give me all this wealth so I deny you, think like I can take care of myself, but at the same time, if I'm really poor, I'm going to be tempted to steal. So neither one of those is necessarily a good situation to be in. So, you can probably find one element of your existence that might seem harder than the next guy. But you know what? He or she, they can come right back at you and point out that, but there's an area of their life that's a lot harder than you've got it. Again, be careful about envying the wealthy. I've known a number of very successful people over the years that were believers. Yeah, and they were sued. And they had to fire people. And then they got sued for that. And they had small businesses. And I want to tell you what. And then they had all these people that were dependent upon them. Be careful about envying the person that has stuff, because typically it took a lot of work to get there. It's a lot of work to maintain that. It's a lot of responsibility. In fact, it's so much responsibility that the average person doesn't want that type of responsibility. So be careful. Don't let anyone convince you that those people out there, well, it's not fair they have that. Dig under the surface, and usually I found that most people that have nice things have worked really, really hard to get there. They were doing their homework when we were playing, okay? I mean, they put a lot of effort into it. And they don't get much sleep at night. And they work very long, long days. And they don't watch a whole lot of television. And whatever they read, it's purposeful reading. It's not just kind of entertainment reading, all right? So be careful. Be careful about allowing people to get you to envy the next guy. If you're a Christian, you have every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places in Christ, Ephesians 1:3. And if you're a Christian, and Christians have been persecuted from day one. And in fact, Jesus said if the world hated him, it will hate his people. Christians are kind of the minority among minorities. The percentage of people on the face of the earth that are actually faithful Christians is probably less than 1%. And that's a small, small group. But we're not to feel sorry for ourselves. In the book of 1 Peter chapter 4, it says in verse 14, if you're reviled for the name of Christ, you are blessed. You're not a victim, because the Spirit of glory and of God rests upon you. Then it says, if anyone suffers as a Christian, he is not to be ashamed, verse 16, but he's to glorify God on that behalf. Second thing, one way that you can avoid being devoured is ask for help and ask for advice. I think of the Ethiopian eunuch in Acts 8, when Philip shows up and said, do you understand what you're reading? And he says, how can I except someone guides me? The Ethiopian eunuch ends up saved because he's accessible, because he's willing to open up his life. He's willing to be humble and say, hey, I don't know everything. Got a question about this passage. I'm not going to pretend I know it all. Ask for help. Proverbs chapter 9, 8 through 9, teach a wise man, and he will increase in learning. But the fool despises instruction. The fool is the person, you can't tell the fool anything. Oh, I know. The fool cuts you off in mid-sentence. The fool has already made up his mind what he or she is going to believe. The fool says, well, I can never believe that. Without, wait a minute, let's look at the evidence, right? Let's be like the Bereans. Let's examine the scriptures daily to see whether these things were so. Acts 17:11. Don't be the fool. The fool operates on preconceived ideas. The fool has already made up his or her mind. The fool is not open to dialogue or a conversation. The fool is not open to advice. You're going to get devoured. You're going to get devoured if you go down that road. Be humble, admit what you don't know. James chapter 1, verse 19. You need to be slow to speak, and you need to be quick to listen, quick to hear, and you need to be slow to anger. Man, James 1:19, isn't that a verse for our culture this summer? We got so many people that are quick to anger, they're not listening, and they're talking off the top of their head. You need to listen, take in the information, hear everything, hear all the facts. You need to ponder what you say before you say it. And you need to be slow to anger, because you know what? The text says, the anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God. And I think we're seeing that going on in our culture around. Man's anger is not achieving God's righteousness. All right. Be grateful. Count your blessings. Count your blessings. There's an area of your life, no matter how difficult your life is, that you're blessed. One could be you're alive. He said there's a number of people that have lived that are now dead, but they're lost, and they have no chance to correct that. Okay, because it's appointed unto man once to die, and after this comes judgment. At judgment, your fate is sealed. Hebrews 9, verse 28. Also in the account of the rich man and Lazarus, the rich man dies, and there are no second chances. In fact, there's not a verse in the Bible that would indicate any sort of second chances after death. So, if you're alive, man, that's a tremendous blessing. There are people, no matter how hard your life is right now, there are people who have died and are lost that would trade places with you in a heartbeat if they could. No matter how difficult your physical or earthly life is, simply from the fact is, you've got a priceless commodity, and that is, you've got life. You're on the earth, you've got time, and you can change things. Free will. The opportunity to change the path you're on is priceless. There are trillions and trillions of people that have lived and they're dead now that cannot change anything. It's set in stone. And they can't go back and change anything. And they can't change their condition before God. That is a priceless thing to have. I mean, that's worth more than what's on the face of the earth. That's worth more than that. So, count your blessings. What went right today? What went right this year? Okay. If you were born in America, you're incredibly blessed. You won the lottery if you were born in America. I know people want to trust the country, but it's still the land of opportunity. There's still a whole lot of people who want to come here. And if you've ever traveled abroad, you realize it's a pretty sweet place. At least there's opportunity here. At least there's opportunity here. If you work hard, you're diligent, you have a good attitude, okay? There's plenty of opportunity, and there's plenty of examples of people that, despite their upbringing, background, whatever, have done well in life. In fact, I worship with a number of them who had very difficult upbringings, very difficult upbringings. Be unselfish. One way to get devoured is to be a narcissist. Just think about yourself, and you will end up devoured. Be honest and love the truth. Not love your opinion, not love, a certain opinion of men. Love the truth. Are you devoted to the truth? Proverbs 23:23 says, buy the truth and sell it not. The Bible also warns about Ephesians 4:14 about people that are carried about by every wind of doctrine. That is, people that are caught up by different philosophies and human movements and slogans and things like that jump on the bandwagon. And then the bandwagon ends up going into a place that's not good. The communist revolution was a good example of that. A lot of people got caught up in the bandwagon of the communist revolution, and years later 100 million people are dead. And a lot of people's rights have been removed. And a lot of people that really got caught up in the movement consumed them, and they end up in some labor camp in Siberia. So, be careful about being carried about by every wind of doctrine. Before you jump on a bandwagon, you might find out what that bandwagon is about. You might find out what are the tenets and doctrines of that bandwagon and where that bandwagon is headed. Don't just jump on something because it's popular. Do you love the truth? Do you love the truth? Now, I tell you what, if I picked up the book and it just confirmed everything I already thought, I know that's not the truth. Okay, right? And too many people want that. Too many people think that's the truth. The truth is whatever sounds good to them. The truth is, that just confirms all my preconceived ideas. That's not the truth. Obviously, you are not the repository of truth. Not only that, but you're finite, you're limited. You've got to have a number of wrong ideas in your head, right? You're fallible. I know the Bible's a truth for a number of reasons, but today's reason is because it challenges me on all my preconceived ideas and opinions. Because it does not agree with me. It does not agree with me, my preconceived ideas and opinions. And there's no loophole. There's no out here, all right? There's not an easy out. And it tells me all the things not all the things I want to hear. It tells me all the things I need to hear, and it's no respecter of persons. It would tell you that too. It treats everyone the same. Okay? God is no respecter of persons, Acts 10:34, and everyone is made in his image, Genesis 1 and verse 26. Surround yourself with people who love God more than they love you. Do not surround yourself with people that will lie for you, make excuses for you, or just tickle your ears. Do not surround yourself with flatterers. Do not surround yourself to people that are given the change. They're jumping on this and they're jumping on that, they're jumping on that. And do not surround yourself with people that basically like they have a price. Okay, surround yourself with people that love God more than they love you, and thus they're bold enough to tell you the truth. When you need to change, they'll tell you need to change. When you just said something that's not true, they'll challenge you on that. Do hard things. Avoid the easy path. Embrace work. Be like the ant, Proverbs 6. Yeah, be like the ant. Work. Be diligent. Work with your own hands. Mind your own business type of thing, as the Bible points out. Be diligent. If you avoid work, if you're trying to get out of work, and if you're avoiding responsibility, you will avoid growth. I mean, work has been there since the garden. Adam was given the job to tend the garden, so work is not a bad thing. You do better when you're working. You do better when you're productive. All right? I mean, a lot of those expressions that old timers used to talk about, that idle hands are the devil's workshop, that's true. That is definitely true. The Bible talks about people that are busybodies. They're not working their busybodies and they're doing a lot of damage. You got enough stuff in your own life that you need to be on top of that and work on it. Keep you busy so you're not gossiping and stuff like that. All right? So, embrace work and hard work. Respect obedience. Don't downplay the need for obedience. John chapter 14, 15. Too many people kind of walk down this path of, oh, I don't think the details matter to God. I think God is so busy running the universe that he doesn't really care how we worship or etc. Well, that person hasn't read the Bible. In the Bible, God cares about Cain's sacrifice. It's rejected. God cares about Nadab and Abihu, what they offered. They're consumed with fire, Leviticus 10. God cared about how the Ark of the Covenant was carried, okay? The method that was used, 2 Samuel 6. God cared about what Saul did with the animals of the Amalekites. God cared intensely about that. 1 Samuel 15. God cares about who offered the incense in the Old Testament. 2 Chronicles 26. Biblical precedent after biblical precedent that God is concerned about the details. Do not downplay the details of a command. Don't say, well, that doesn't matter. God's too busy to worry about stuff like that. That's one way to end up devoured. That's one way to end up in apostasy. That's one way to end up a million miles from being the church that Jesus talked about. Okay. Be faithful in the little things. Jesus talked about that. He who is faithful in little is also faithful to much. Be faithful in your commitments. Be faithful to your marriage vows. Be faithful to your financial obligations. Okay? Be faithful. Be faithful when you're visiting in a strange town. Be faithful when you're in a hotel room by yourself. Be faithful when you're away from family, right? Be faithful when you're off to college, okay? Be faithful in private as well as in public. If you're not, you'll be devoured. Avoid instant gratification. And so avoid things like alcohol and pornography and drugs and just shopping to feel better and buying something to make you feel better. Avoid those things. Okay, that's all instant gratification. You're going to be devoured. See the importance of saving up for things, not getting up to your eyeballs in debt. All right? Learn to live within your means. Learn to guard your heart. Learn to watch your language and your tongue. As Job said, I'm not going to set a worthless thing before my eyes. So, I'm not going to put junk into my head, trash into my head, whether it's books or music or movies or whatever, stuff on the internet, not putting that trash in my head. The people that produce that have huge personal problems. You don't want their life. You don't want to envy them. They're messed up. You might think you got problems. The people making that stuff are more messed up than you are. And often they have very tragic lives. So you don't want that stuff in your head. Philippians chapter 4, verse 8. Set your mind. Be very rigorous as far as with your mental life. Or as 2 Corinthians 10, 3-5 says, take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. Keep your mental life true and clean. Read the Bible and avoid imaginary encounters with God. And what I mean by that is so many people make up this imaginary encounter. They make up this imaginary conversation they have with God. And in this imaginary conversation, God agrees with them. Like, God agrees with their excuses. And God agrees how that, poor soul, they just had such a hard life. And God doesn't expect much of them. And God understands why they sin and why they're in sin. And God understands all of that. And it's just okay. Those are all imaginary encounters. Joseph was sold into slavery, yet he was still not allowed to be involved with Potiphar's wife. Genesis 39. Daniel was ripped out of his homeland and away from his parents, and he's still not allowed to defile himself with the king's dainties and violate the food laws of the Old Testament. Daniel chapter 1 and verse 8. The early church would undergo persecution, and yet Ananias and Sapphira were not allowed to tell a white lie. All right? Hardship does not allow you to sin. I mean, the Apostle Paul went through a tremendous amount of hardship, and he's not allowed to sin. Hardship does not give you a free pass. And neither does grace. Grace does not give you a free pass either. Jesus did not die upon the cross for you so that you could wallow in sin the rest of your life or sit on some bar stool, okay? Jesus died on the cross for you so you could live a blameless, holy, righteous life and be a child of God and be a light in this world. Philippians chapter 2, about verse 15. Keep an eye on your own sins. Deal with your own life. Don't try to go out and change the world if your life is a mess. People that have done that, people that have gone out and tried to change the world like Karl Marx, whose life was a mess, end up doing a tremendous amount of damage and end up creating a system that enslaves far more people than the former system ever enslaved. All right? So that's just a big mistake. You're accountable for the person you become. No excuses, no shifting blame. Buck stops here. Doesn't matter how you're raised. Doesn't matter your economic background. Doesn't matter where you came from. Whatever, okay? You're accountable for the person you become. Abraham Lincoln pointed out at 40, the face you have at 40, that's your face. That's a face you've created. All right? You start trying to blame other people, you're going to be devoured. Do what you can do today. Do not procrastinate. You don't have as much time as you think you have. Tomorrow's getting booked up already, and you don't know that. Okay? Each day has enough trouble of its own, Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 6. If you can do it today, get it done today. Because when you die, that's it. There's no coming back and fixing anything. All right? That's Ecclesiastes chapter 9 and verse 10. Be grateful for the Bible and view it for what it is, the Word of God. It doesn't need your improvement. It doesn't need your editing. You're finite. I'm finite. You're not God. I'm not God. Without God, you're an idiot. Without God, I'm an idiot. Okay? Just, that's the way it is. We're a sinner. Without God, we gravitate towards sin. And is that really a mystery? I mean, would anyone even debate that? Look at the world. Look at the world. How's the world doing without God? Long ago, our culture started walking away from God. How we doing? How we doing? We doing good? No, we're doing horrible, right? We're doing horrible because we're trying to solve our problems. We're trying to fix things without God, without divine help, and without going to Scripture. We're just trying to use human wisdom and human thinking and etc., and we're making one big mess of everything. We're just proving God's point. Every day in America and in Europe and places like that, all we're doing is proving God's point. Jeremiah 10:23. The way is not in man that walks to direct his own steps. That's all we're doing. We're just reaffirming that the Bible's right every day. That's what we're doing. We're just reaffirming passages like Romans 3:23. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Or John chapter 8. Everyone who commits sin is the slave of sin. We're just, every day by our behavior as a people, we're just going, yep, that passage is true. Yeah, that passage is true. Yeah, that passage is true. We need Scripture. It was a while back in this culture, in this society, that people kind of like, the Bible, that's so antiquated, outdated. We don't need that. We can fix everything ourselves. How's it going? How's it going? You ready? You ready to start listening to this? You ready to start listening to God, or are you just going to keep banging your head against the wall? You're just going to keep digging that broken cistern that holds no water. Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 13. You're just going to keep blindly groping along the wall like those in Isaiah 59 did. Just going to keep groaning about like, I don't like what's happening, what's going on in my life, and etc. I mean, you ready? You ready to listen? I don't know. It seems like still there's a lot of people in our country that are going through a lot of misery. Ready to listen to this? Oh, no. They're a prodigal son. They're the prodigal son. They're feeding the pigs and starving. And they haven't come to themselves yet. Have you come to yourself? Light bulb come on and go like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Sin isn't making me happy. Rebellion's not making me happy. Not following the Bible, that's not making me happy. I mean, what do you got to lose? What do you have to lose? Is your life so amazing and so great, you're going like, I don't need God? I don't know very many people like that. My name is Mark. I'm with the Church of Christ in Beaverton. 503-644-9017. BeavertonChurchofChrist.net. On that website would be various lessons. If you want to contact me, email in the sermon section. At the bottom of all of the sermons should be my personal email address. You'd like to get together, talk, give this a chance, find out what to do to become a Christian? I'm here. I'm here. For a limited time, I'm here. Until next time, we'll see you later.